To walk us through the impact of these escalating trade war and its potential effect on South Korea, we have with us Professor Shin Sang-hyup from Kyunghee University. Thank you for coming in today, Professor.
Pleased to be here today.
The trade war has officially started, it seems. U.S. and China have both imposed tariffs, billions of dollars worth of tariffs on each other. And the U.S. has now announced that they're planning $200 billion more worth of tariffs in the coming months. And China have said they have no choice but to retaliate. Where do things go from here then?
Well, I think the trade war would continue for a while because, we have to think about what is the real reasons why USA started trade war against China. I mean, somebody said that, yeah, this is only because of the trade and economic reasons. But some others said that, no, there must be some political reasons as well. And the China and USA has been in a competitive position in taking the hegemony power not only in the Asia-Pacific region but also in the global market, the arena. So somebody said that the USA will continue to take some protectionist measures, such as they are going to impose more additional tariffs on cars, and another one is that they may be prevent Chinese investment, China from making more investment in the USA. Well, certainly these things seem to be very, painful for the Chinese government and Chinese economy itself. Why? Because China achieved a very remarkable economic growth rate over the last several decades. Right now, it became the second largest economy in the world. And then on the part of USA, I think they do not lose their status as #1 economy in the world by preventing China from becoming a more powerful the economies in the world. So, the real reason why what I'm thinking is that USA has some political considerations as well. So for a time being, the USA will take a series of the protectionist measures against China, and then as we saw already, China will take retaliatory action. So there must be some escalation, competition, retaliatory actions taken by USA and China against each other. So that's the reason why I think that for a time being, this kind of the situation will continue. If we buy the idea that USA will limit their actions and policies to trade conflicts with China, that means that China will make some way to solve this problem. For example, the legal basis of the protectionistic policy taken by USA government is Super 301 of the Trade Expansion Act. If you look at the article itself, that means that because of unfair trading practices, the USA government is taking the protectionistic measures against China. Then if China can just accept those kind of asking from the USA government, they can change the policy, which persuade the USA to have their Chinese government has making every effort to solve the unfairness in the trade with the USA. Then both sides will have some excuse to change their policies. That means that can be the way to solve the current trade wars. But as I already explained before, if USA has another consideration that, for a time being, the USA will take protectionist measures against China, and then China will take the retaliatory action against the USA continuously. So that is the reason why, for a time being, there will be the trade war between two countries.
The impact of the trade war, there's some question marks about it. For example, the US and Trump has been touting protectionist policies since the beginning of his term, but the US economy still seems to be doing quite well, especially as Trump says, he keeps pointing at the stock market saying, isn't this brilliant, isn't it record high numbers, that kind of stuff. Do we imagine it's going to stay that way for the second half of the year, or do you think the trade war will start to bite at some point?
Well, actually, we cannot think the American economy separate from global economy, right? Well, global economy has enjoyed, quite the good economic circumstances over the last, for the time being. For 17 months, they since the early 2016, the global economy has been in a good shape. But of course, the first half of 2018, it was a good start for the global economy. But I mean, if I give you a figure, the January, the global economy achieved about 5.6% growth, even though the March, it dropped about the 0.8% growth, but in return, I mean, they achieved the about 4.3% economic growth in April. So to make a long story short, in the beginning of the 2018, the global economy was very good. But by taking the protectionistic measures, I mean, USA, I mean, the Chinese government has taken retaliatory action. There are two major economies in the world, and the third one, European Union, even themselves, I mean, they also changed their trade policy, which is more protectionistic measures. Then global economic, I mean, trading circumstances return to the protectionistic circumstances. That will not good for the USA economy as well, because even though USA does not rely on the trade as much as other countries, but without trade with other countries, USA economy cannot keep their dynamism in it. So, I mean, if the situation goes on for a while, then USA economy will face also challenges like the other countries.
Let's briefly talk about the WTO issue. As you saw in that report earlier, the US representative has said it will be the reckoning point of China now and its membership in the organization, and that China's trade practices need to be addressed somehow, either within the organization or without. But one of the interesting points that the US talked about was the fact that actually the WTO cannot handle such a big issue.
Right.
Does Washington have a point there?
I think, well, the two countries are right now playing the game. You know, I think the real reason, I mean, is not related to two countries' explanation. I mean, it can be acceptable. Of course, China does not have the market-oriented economy. Yes, it is true. But the USA also has taken the very protectionist measures based on Super 301, Article 301 of the Trade Expansion Act of the USA government. That is also a violation. It cannot be accepted by the all WTO member countries, because I mean, they do not agree with the unfairness of the trade. That is the perception of the USA government. So, I mean, there are some rooms to be misunderstood by the other member countries. Other countries can interpret those kind of things differently. So I said that they are playing the game. So what I'm thinking is that, you know, I want to emphasize one of the limits which WTO system has. When the big member countries of WTO violate the principles of the WTO does not have any ways to punish them. That is one of the limits of WTO system. But another thing which I want to underline is that we have a very valuable lessons from the World War II, when we did not have WTO system. At the time, each country sought for their own national interests, even though they could, what could happen if they stick to their economic policy. But we have the WTO system. That means that we can meet together, we can share the opinions on the economic policies of member countries together. They can have a power, ability to stop some member country to take their own the economic policy to maximize their national interest, which can be a very direct threat to the global trading system. So WTO system could be maintained, even though it has some limits in it. So I think we have to understand the argument between two governments in this way.
Let's quickly move on to the South Korea perspective of all this. The US and China are South Korea's two biggest trade partners. What does South Korea need to be wary of now?
Well, actually, on the top of the protectionist measures taken by the USA government and Chinese government, another of the difficulty we have is that European Union, which is also very important trading partner for us, also taking the very, very protectionistic measures, trade policies against Korea. So we are in a very difficult situation. But I think I want to emphasize the diversification of trading partners. Very recently, President Moon Jae-in paid his official visit to India, and he emphasized that India will be one of the more important trading partners for Korea. I mean, this is one of the ways we have to take for the future economic prosperity. That means diversification of the Korean trading partners seems to be one of the solutions to the economic difficulties facing us. But on the short-term basis, I think by taking from the very protectionistic trading environments, we have to seek for some items of products which can have competitive advantages. What I mean is that if USA government impose the high tariffs on the Chinese products, then we can replace the products with our products. That means that if we have the good quality and price competitiveness, we can enter into the USA market, replacing the market share in the USA market.
Let's look at some figures that came out today as well. The Bank of Korea revised down its growth forecast for the year from 3% to 2.9%. Korean exports this year have been good, but it seems the numbers are being dragged down by the job market and investments in the country.
Right.
Is this forecast perhaps a little bit worrying for the future?
I think so. It's quite worrying because all the economic indicators, is looking bad right now. The employment rate and even exports. Korea is heavily reliant on exports. Our exports started to show the signals of the weakening. Over the last several months, Korea has, most specifically 17 months straight, the Korea has achieved the economic, increase of exports. But very recently, the Korean exports started to be slowed down. So this is one of the concerns we have. Another one is that, the number of the jobs. On average basis, every month, about 172,000 jobs were offered. But this is the half of the same period last year. So the unemployment rate is expected to increase. So all these major economic indicators said to us that Korean economy is right now weakening. So I think in the second half, the Korean economy will face more challenges. Because not only because of the domestic, the economic situations, but also the external economic circumstances, which can be represented by the trade war between USA and China. So I think the Korean economy will have the tougher period, strong challenges in the second half of 2018, I think.
And briefly, before we go, let's talk about what President Moon can do. President Moon Jae-in, one of his key agendas was income-led growth. That's what he called it. But so far, there seems to be little impact that seems to be making. How do you think this will progress in Moon's second year in office now? Well,
like the coins, which has two sides, I think the income-led economic growth and is one side. But as you pointed out, I think many economists said that it does not work. It is not working at the moment. So right now, the group of economists empathize for sustainable economic growth. Corporate investment is vital. So the government should have to promote the big companies to increase their investment by how? By deregulation. I think the deregulation is the way to support innovative growth systematically in Korea. So I think very recently, the President Moon, during his state visit to India, he met the Samsung Electronics leader Lee Jae-yong. I think this is one of the way to encourage the businessmen, Korean businessmen, to change their strategies. That means increase their investment. I think for the time being, the government will take both strategies at the same time. But depending on the responses from the market, the government will respond more to the business circle demanding strategies. That means that the government will take the deregulation more actively in order to increase draw the more direct investment from the corporate in Korea, I think.
We'll have to end it there. Thank you for making the time to come in today and sharing your insights with us.
My pleasure.